Right now, someone is uploading a video. Someone is launching a website. Someone is building a business. Someone is publishing an idea. Someone is creating something that did not exist yesterday. And somewhere else, millions of people are consuming what they create, watching, scrolling, reading, listening, sharing. Most people think this is the internet. The videos, the websites, the content, the platforms. But that is only what we can see, because beneath every digital experience exists another layer, an invisible layer, a hidden network of systems quietly powering everything above it. Most people never see it. Most people never think about it. Yet without it, the modern internet would not exist. Every creator depends on it. Every business relies on it. Every platform is built upon it. And every day, it becomes more important because something unusual is happening. The internet is changing, not in the way most people imagine. The biggest transformation is not happening on our screens. It is happening underneath them, inside systems, inside workflows, inside infrastructure, inside tools designed to make creation faster, distribution easier, and scale almost limitless. For decades, success on the internet was often determined by what people could create. Today, it is increasingly determined by the systems they can access, the tools they can leverage, the infrastructure they can operate within. And understanding that shift may be one of the most important advantages of the modern digital age, because the internet we see is not the internet shaping our future. The real internet exists beneath the surface. Today, we explore the hidden infrastructure behind the modern internet.
For most of human history, creation was difficult. A filmmaker needed equipment. A designer needed specialized training. A business needed resources. A publisher needed distribution. The barriers were high. The tools were expensive. The opportunities were limited. And those limitations determined who could participate. Then the internet arrived, and slowly, those barriers began to disappear. Information became accessible. Software became affordable. Knowledge became global. A single individual could suddenly reach an audience once reserved for organizations. The internet democratized access. But access was only the beginning, because over time, the internet started solving another problem: production itself. The tools became smarter. The systems became faster. The workflows became easier, and creation began to change. Something that once required weeks could now be completed in days. Something that once required teams could now be accomplished by individuals. Something that once required expertise could increasingly be supported by software. Millions of people entered the digital economy, not because human intelligence suddenly increased, not because creativity suddenly appeared, but because infrastructure improved. The barriers became lower, the systems became better, and when barriers fall, participation expands. That pattern has repeated throughout history. The printing press expanded publishing, the factory expanded manufacturing, the computer expanded productivity, and the internet expanded participation. But today, another shift is happening. The internet is no longer simply helping people create, it is helping people create faster. And in the modern internet, speed changes everything.
To understand where we are going, we must understand how we arrived here. The early internet was simple. Websites were manually built. Graphics were manually designed. Videos required expensive equipment. Everything required effort. Everything required expertise. And everything required time. Then software became easier. Templates emerged, frameworks appeared, platforms expanded, and complexity slowly disappeared behind interfaces. Most people never noticed because technology often hides its own progress. Each generation inherits a system that feels normal. Few people stop to consider how much complexity has already been removed. A website that once required coding can now be launched in hours. A design that once required an agency can now be produced by an individual. A video that once required a production team can now be created from a laptop. Every technological era follows the same pattern. Complexity becomes abstraction. Abstraction becomes accessibility. Accessibility becomes adoption, and adoption changes society. The internet did not simply connect computers, it connected capabilities. And every year, those capabilities become easier to access. What once belonged to specialists becomes available to everyone. That is the story of the modern internet. Not simply more technology, but less friction. And whenever friction disappears, human behavior changes.
Most people think the internet runs on content, but content is only the visible layer. The real internet exists underneath. Every website depends on infrastructure. Every creator depends on tools. Every business depends on systems. Every platform depends on networks it does not own. The internet is not a collection of websites. It is a stack, a layered architecture of invisible dependencies. At the very bottom, physical infrastructure, data centers, fiber optic cables, servers, energy systems, the machinery powering the digital world. Above that, cloud infrastructure, the systems storing information, processing requests, delivering content across continents in milliseconds. Above that, platform infrastructure, payment systems, communication systems, authentication systems, analytics systems, recommendation systems. And above that, the layer most people recognize, applications, websites, content, brands, creators, businesses, everything users interact with every day. But here is what makes the modern internet fascinating. The higher the layer, the more visible it becomes. The lower the layer, the more important it becomes. Most people talk about creators. Few people talk about the systems creators rely on. Most people talk about platforms. Few people talk about the infrastructure beneath those platforms. Most people see the finished product. Few people see the systems that made it possible. And increasingly, those systems are becoming the real source of leverage. Because the internet rewards scale, and systems scale better than people. A creator can only work so many hours. A business can only hire so many employees. But infrastructure can serve millions simultaneously, without sleeping, without stopping, without even being noticed. That is the hidden story of the modern internet. Not the websites, not the videos, not the platforms, the systems underneath them.
Every digital experience begins long before a user arrives. Before someone watches a video, systems prepare it. Before someone visits a website, systems deliver it. Before someone buys a product, systems process trust. Before someone follows a creator, systems determine visibility. Algorithms decide exposure. Infrastructure determines speed. Networks determine accessibility. Workflows determine efficiency. And all of these layers work together. Quietly, continuously, almost invisibly. Most users never think about them because successful infrastructure disappears. the better it works, the less people notice it exists. Electricity feels invisible until it disappears. The internet works the same way. People rarely think about infrastructure until something breaks. But those who build businesses, those who create content, those who operate inside digital ecosystems, eventually discover a simple truth. The internet is not powered by attention alone. It is powered by systems. And understanding those systems changes how you see everything.
Technology changes tools, but tools eventually change behavior, and behavior eventually changes society. This pattern has repeated throughout history. The automobile changed transportation. Transportation changed cities. Cities changed lifestyles. The smartphone changed communication. Communication changed culture. Culture changed human behavior. And now, the internet is doing something similar. Not because technology is becoming more powerful, but because it is becoming more integrated into daily life. People wake up with the internet, work through the internet, learn through the internet, shop through the internet, socialize through the internet, build businesses through the internet. Increasingly, the internet is no longer a destination, it is an environment influencing attention, decisions, habits, opportunities, and expectations. Consider how creators operate today. Years ago, creating content was an occasional activity. Today, many creators function like media companies, publishing continuously, managing communities, operating across multiple platforms simultaneously. Why? Because the infrastructure supporting them improved. Technology changed capability, capability changed behavior, behavior changed expectations, and expectations changed entire industries. The same pattern appears everywhere. Businesses move faster, consumers expect more, audiences demand consistency, markets evolve continuously, and underneath all of it, infrastructure quietly expands. The internet is not merely changing what people do, it is changing what people consider normal, and that may be its most powerful influence of all. Because when technology changes expectations, it changes the future.
A teenager can launch a business from a bedroom. A designer can work with clients across continents. A creator can build an audience larger than traditional media companies. A startup can compete globally from day one. Previous generations would have considered these possibilities extraordinary. Today, they feel normal. That is how technological revolutions work. At first, they appear impossible, then impressive, then ordinary, and finally, essential. The modern internet is reaching that stage. The stage where infrastructure becomes invisible because it has become expected. People no longer ask whether they can access opportunity. They ask how quickly they can access it. People no longer ask whether they can create. They ask how efficiently they can create. The conversation has shifted, and that shift is reshaping the digital world.
Every economic era creates infrastructure. The industrial era created factories. The information era created software. And the modern internet is creating something new, creative infrastructure. For decades, digital creation followed a familiar pattern. An idea appeared, a team was assembled, assets were created, production began, time was consumed, money was spent, and eventually something was launched. The process worked, but it was slow. And in a digital economy, speed matters. Because opportunities move quickly, trends emerge quickly, attention shifts quickly, markets evolve quickly, and creators increasingly compete in environments where timing matters as much as talent. This created demand for something different. Not more creativity, more efficiency. Not more ideas, more execution. And wherever demand emerges, infrastructure follows. Today, millions of creators rely on systems they did not build. Design frameworks, website systems, video assets, audio libraries, creative marketplaces, motion graphics, visual templates, digital building blocks designed to reduce friction. The audience sees the final result. But behind the scenes, creation increasingly resembles assembly, not because creativity is disappearing, because repetitive work is being eliminated. The creator focuses on vision, the infrastructure handles repetition, and that distinction is becoming one of the defining characteristics of the modern internet.
Most people imagine creators working alone. A laptop, a camera, an idea. And sometimes that image is true. But increasingly, modern creators operate inside ecosystems. A video creator may use editing assets created by someone else. A startup may launch using templates designed by someone else. A marketer may build campaigns using resources developed by someone else. A business may deploy systems assembled from dozens of independent components. The internet is becoming modular. And modular systems scale differently because they allow people to focus on outcomes instead of rebuilding foundations. Imagine constructing a city. You could manufacture every brick yourself, build every road yourself, create every utility yourself. Or you could build on existing infrastructure. One approach consumes enormous resources. The other creates leverage. The internet is increasingly rewarding leverage, not shortcuts. Leverage, the ability to achieve more with fewer constraints. And creative infrastructure is becoming one of the most important forms of leverage available today, not because it replaces human effort, because it multiplies it.
There is an economy most internet users never see. An economy operating beneath content, beneath websites, beneath platforms. An economy built around creation itself. Every year, millions of digital assets are produced. Graphics, templates, music, motion design, user interfaces, visual systems, creative resources. Most users never interact with them directly, yet they appear everywhere. Inside advertisements, inside businesses, inside creator brands, inside digital experiences. They have become part of the infrastructure layer of the internet, a hidden marketplace supporting visible outcomes. And as the internet grows, that infrastructure layer becomes increasingly valuable because every creator faces the same constraint: time. Every business faces the same constraint: resources. And infrastructure exists to solve both.
The next phase of the internet may already be underway. Artificial intelligence is accelerating production. Automation is reducing friction. Systems are becoming increasingly autonomous, and the pace of change continues to accelerate. For most of internet history, humans performed the majority of digital work. Humans created, humans edited, humans optimized, humans distributed. Today, many of those processes are being supported by systems. Tomorrow, some may be handled almost entirely by infrastructure. This raises an important question. What happens when infrastructure begins creating infrastructure? What happens when systems generate the assets used by other systems? What happens when production becomes increasingly automated? The answer is not entirely clear, but history offers clues. Every major technological shift follows a familiar pattern. Productivity increases, barriers decrease, participation expands, competition intensifies, and value moves toward the layers enabling everyone else. The internet followed this pattern. Cloud computing followed this pattern. Software followed this pattern. Artificial intelligence appears to be following the same path. The tools improve, the barriers fall, and infrastructure becomes more important. For decades, information was scarce. Then information became abundant. Content followed the same path. Once scarce, now abundant. And increasingly, creation itself is becoming abundant. The challenge is no longer producing something. The challenge is producing something meaningful. The challenge is standing out. The challenge is navigating a world where almost everyone has access to powerful tools, and that changes the competitive landscape. When creation becomes easier, attention becomes more valuable. When production becomes abundant, distribution becomes more important. When tools become accessible, systems become the differentiator. The future internet may not be defined by who can create. It may be defined by who understands the systems beneath creation itself. The most important effects of technology are rarely the obvious ones. When people discuss the internet, they often focus on what it allows us to do: communicate, create, share, learn, build. But the deeper effects are often harder to see, because technology rarely changes society directly. It changes behavior first, and behavior changes everything else. The internet did not simply make information accessible. It changed how people consume information. It changed how people learn. It changed how people form opinions. It changed how people make decisions. Social media did not simply create new platforms. It created new incentives, new expectations, new forms of status, new forms of influence. Artificial intelligence is unlikely to be different. Most discussions focus on what AI can do: generate images, write text, produce video, automate tasks. But the larger story may be how it changes human behavior. What happens when creation becomes easier? People create more. What happens when content becomes abundant? Attention becomes scarce. What happens when attention becomes scarce? Competition intensifies. And what happens when competition intensifies? Systems become increasingly valuable, because systems create consistency. Systems create efficiency. Systems create leverage, and leverage compounds. This is where many people misunderstand technological change. They look for dramatic moments: a breakthrough, a launch, a headline, a viral innovation. But most transformations happen differently. They happen gradually, then suddenly. A small improvement saves a few minutes. Those minutes become hours. Those hours become days. Those days become opportunities. And over time, small efficiencies compound into enormous advantages. That is the hidden power of infrastructure. Most infrastructure does not create value once. It creates value repeatedly. Every day, every week, every month, every year. The internet is filled with these compounding systems: invisible systems, quiet systems, systems operating beneath the surface. And while most people focus on outcomes, the most important changes often begin at the infrastructure level. Because infrastructure shapes possibility. It determines what becomes practical, what becomes scalable, and eventually, what becomes normal. The future rarely arrives all at once. It arrives through systems, quietly embedding themselves into everyday life, until one day,
the world looks completely different, and nobody can remember when the change began.
The internet began as a network of computers, machines exchanging information across distance. Simple, technical, limited. But over time, it became something more. A network of information, a network of businesses, a network of communities, a network of creators, a network of ideas. And today, it is becoming something even larger. An environment, a system influencing how humanity works, learns, communicates, creates, builds businesses, consumes information, and imagines the future. Most people experience the internet through what they can see: the videos, the websites, the applications, the platforms, the content. But beneath every visible layer exists another world, a hidden architecture of infrastructure, systems supporting systems, tools supporting tools, networks supporting networks, an invisible foundation powering a visible reality. The deeper you explore the modern internet, the more you discover the same pattern. The most important systems are often the least visible. The most influential technologies are often the ones people stop noticing. And the greatest transformations are often already underway long before society recognizes them. Because the future of the internet is not being built on screens, it is being built beneath them, inside infrastructure, inside workflows, inside ecosystems, inside systems designed to make creation more accessible, production more scalable, and opportunity more widely distributed. Most people see the internet. Few people see what powers it. And understanding that difference may become one of the most valuable forms of knowledge in the digital age. Most people use the internet. Few people understand it. The deeper you go, the more invisible it becomes. The internet is changing humanity. We explore what happens next. This is NexNet, inside the modern internet.